In this tutorial, I'll be discussing how to use the brush tool. So go out, open a new file, ActionScript 3.0, and click on the brush tool, which is on the toolbar panel. Here it is, the brush tool. And you have two options, the brush tool and the spray brush tool, but we're just going to talk about the brush tool. And it's the same thing as the pencil tool, but if we were to look, there's quite a difference. One thing is, the pencil tool uses the color from the stroke, and the brush tool uses the same color as the fill color. And if we were to look, you'd see that the width of the pencil stays the same and the width of the brush tool stays different. That's because we're using the fill, not the stroke. So those are some differences right there. And if we were to go back to the brush tool, and we have all these different options right here. You have the brush size, which is kind of self-explanatory. You can go from big to something small. It doesn't use the stroke, it uses the brush size. The brush shape, you have all these different shapes, a square, slanted, and you can do all these special effects. And that's it for the brush size and the brush shape. You have these two other options called a lock fill and brush mode. We're not going to talk about lock fill because it's more advanced, and we'll talk about that later. But for brush mode, you have 5 different options. Now I'm going to draw a circle so you understand how these work. With yellow as the stroke and leave that as blue. Gonna make this a perfect circle and center it. You can bring this to the center. Now go back to your brush tool, and you have these different options for brush mode. Paint normal, and we're gonna use black. If we were to brush over the circle, you'd see that it starts breaking the circle, the stroke a bit. You would see that it breaks the stroke into 2 different pieces, and it kind of distorts and messes up the shape a bit. And that's what normal brush does. If we were to go to paint and fills, undo this a bit. And go to paint and fills, and then do it again. You would see that it doesn't break it apart, and it just goes under the stroke instead of breaking it apart. Undo that. If we were to go to paint behind, it would paint behind the shape no matter what, and it wouldn't break apart. If we were to paint selection, you'd see that it isn't doing anything. And that's because you have to select something first. So we're going to select the fill, and then go back to our brush tool, and we have the option paint selection, and you use paint. It's only going to paint what you select, and if you were to look, it breaks or overlaps the stroke, and so that isn't completely great, but it works. And the last option we have is paint inside, which paints inside whatever we touch. So there are actually 2 shapes on the stage. The stage is a shape and the circle is a shape. So if you were to start right here and then go inside the circle, the stage would actually be the inside and anything else would be the outside. So if we were to paint inside the circle and then paint out, the circle would be the inside and the stage would be the outside. and that's how that works. And that's it for the brush tool. And we also have the smoothing option, but you already know what it does. It smooths out that pencil for us. Brush tool, my bad. And that's